Warning: the following video is rated BH. Any fanboy at risk of BH should exit the video and seek medical attention immediately. Viewer discretion is advised. Your feature presentation will begin in 3, 2, 1, meow. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no choppy, craptastic, unpolished, unrefined, poorly designed, flat-out broken, idiotic AI, heaping, hopping, busted piece of crap has gone before.
If I didn't know any better, I'd say that was a turret.
Hey, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm bringing you guys a review for the Xbox 360 version of Star Trek 2013. This should have been titled Star Trek The Last Generation because the enemy models look like they were created for the PlayStation 2 or regular Xbox. The crazy part is the environments and even a few of the cutscenes look really good. It's almost as if they had two graphic engines and two teams working on the same game. I can't remember too many other games that I've played in the last couple years that had such nice looking textures for the game world and such horrible looking enemy models. Now my review is based off playing this game entirely in single player, which it does feature online co-op. I did not test that part out. That could change the entire experience. And if you are determined to play this game, I would recommend finding an online friend to play this with because the computer controlled AI is piss poor, which I'm going to come back to that here in a moment. When I'm doing reviews on this channel and discussing issues with the game, 9 times out of 10, I'm personally able to look past the bugs, the glitches, the flaws, the weaknesses that games have and enjoy the true game that's in front of me. And it may not always seem that way when I'm discussing the game in a review or the first impressions, but that's kind of my job to point out everything that I can find wrong with the game so that people know exactly what they're getting into. And as much as I love the last Star Trek movie and as much as I'm looking forward to the upcoming one, you would think that I would have found it pretty easy to look past the issues and the flaws that I'm about to discuss in this review and enjoy the game for what it is, but that did not happen. Even with the great looking graphics, incredible soundtrack, realistic voice acting in my opinion, and decent script, it was just too hard to look past the issues and enjoy a lot of this game. Every time I started to get into this game and forget about what may have just cropped up as an issue, a new more annoying problem would present itself. Now this next part I'm going to read straight off of GameStop's description of the enemies in this title, and it states, the Gorn return as re-imaged versions of the classic Star Trek villains, infecting their foes with venom that can poison, cause hallucinations, and even kill. Ranging in size and abilities, the Gorn seed mayhem and destruction as they decimate populations and ravage planets. Now that description sounds like they're pretty scary, but you know, that's all well and good, and I will agree the Gorn was a good choice for foes to battle in the game, but the way they're designed and the way they actually look don't make them very intimidating. I mean, to me, after fighting several different types, they all sort of just run together as a globby green mess that resembles big giant lizards with guns. Then comes the actual enemy AI. There were times that an enemy would be standing right next to me and wouldn't acknowledge that I was there, even if it wasn't actively engaged in firing at my partner. Speaking of my computer-driven teammate, there were a few instances in which he really got in the way, especially the first time I fought the Gorn. He would die instantly and need a revival, and because of the nature of that boss fight, I couldn't just stand there and revive him. Long story short, I ended up having to beat that entire section with him just waiting on the ground because he couldn't keep himself alive long enough to do anything useful. And it just got worse from there. It just went downhill. Another section I had to completely restart because Spock decided he needed some exercise, so he chose to run into a wall and completely ignore any instructions that I gave him, and he would not help me complete an objective that required both of us to finish. Other times he would just stand in my way in small hallways, forcing me to direct him to move. But the straw that broke the camel's back like a Bruce Lee kick to the back of my head was when I would get a game over because my partner decided that he needed to go play in some fire for no particular reason. I got multiple game overs in one section and couldn't figure out what was going on, so I had to stand there and just watch him to figure out what was happening, and sure enough, Spock was just magnetically drawn to run through fire. And I don't really understand why I should be punished with a game over if he dies like that, but then again, there's a lot of stuff in this game that doesn't really make much sense, including a few story plot points, but that's not even worth discussing because of the magnitude of everything else going on with this review. The awkward facial animations and poor lip syncing in some of the cutscenes really hampered trying to enjoy the story. Some of the cutscenes were just laugh out loud bad, others were pretty awesome, especially the ones that showcased the Enterprise gliding through space. One nice aspect of the game is there's lots of different types of weapons, but since the enemy you're fighting is rather boring, having cool weapons really didn't have all that same impact as it would in most other games. The tricoder and the blue screen effect are both pretty cool, reminiscent of the two recent Batman titles when using detective mode. You do get a few upgrades as you're playing along. I wouldn't really classify it as even having light RPG elements because there's really only a handful to pick between, and half of them are almost worthless, but I guess it's better than nothing. It almost feels like that was added to the game just so they could say it was in the game. The controls felt a bit flimsy and would occasionally just not respond at all. I died in a few platforming sections because I would press jump and my character sometimes would decide that he would jump and sometimes he wouldn't. Then there's the cover system. Playing on medium difficulty, I pretty much just stopped using it because it wasn't necessary. The few times that I did attempt to use it, it didn't work very well. The same button that you use to take cover is also the same button that you use to roll, so I'm sure I don't need to explain the issues that crop up with that. I would also take damage while in cover depending on what I was pressed against, as the enemy could fire through some solid objects, so again I just gave up on the cover system altogether. Occasionally there would be a very brief fun section to the game, or it would splash something creative into the mix, but then it would always follow it up with a lot of uninspired busy work to fill in the majority of the rest of the stage to extend the gameplay a little bit. Playing through this game reminded me of Terminator Salvation in a sense that if you pulled the best portions out of this game and turned it into 15 minutes of gameplay, it would be a pretty awesome demo. But when you sit there and play it through stage by stage, it drags along so hard that it feels like your brain is getting beaten by a bag of oranges the majority of the time that you're playing. Some of the puzzle areas were so simple that it makes you wonder who the intended audience was for them, and don't even get me started on the mini games. To put it quite frankly, there were points this title was nothing short of painful to play through. Even the combat got old quickly because of the poor AI programming. It's pretty bad when your enemies aren't doing much of anything useful, then you turn around and see your computer-controlled partner face planting the wall. Some stages I played through, I think maybe his gun was just jammed the entire time. It's really hard to focus on enjoying the game when the computer AI is this bad. This feels like a game that was created at the last minute just to cash in on the upcoming movie release. With the exception of the graphics, soundtrack, and voice acting, pretty much every aspect of this game feels rushed and unpolished. I've already read on a couple forums that some people were unhappy with the voice acting, so I could actually be praising one portion of this game that some of you guys may end up not liking. I would imagine a few of the diehard Star Trek fans will find a way somehow to enjoy parts of this game, but overall this just isn't a good game. If you remove the Star Trek license, it wouldn't even be worth playing for free. But if you're absolutely dead set on playing this one, I would strongly recommend waiting until it hits the $20 price range, which I would imagine won't take very long. Even a bad game can be occasionally fun when you're not shelling out $50 or $60 for it. It's been a long time since I purchased a game and actually regretted buying it, but this one fit the bill and my copy's on its way out the door less than 3 days after its release. Even if it wasn't bogged down with all sorts of technical issues, even if it somehow gets patched and runs flawlessly, the game still wouldn't be worth playing solo. Maybe the gameplay improves a little bit when playing with a friend, but either way, it will definitely give Aliens Colonial Marines a run for its money for 2013's worst retail game of the year. The sad thing is, a few people seem to think I enjoy it when a game fails, like I personally enjoy wasting my own money and spending my free time playing a game that I want to just cut off more than anything and fling out the window. I would have loved for Aliens in this title to have turned out differently, but they didn't. And to close out this review with one of my favorite new phrases, it is what it is. This is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.
Whenever you're ready, Spock. I don't like this.
I would have to agree.
How do you know?
I do not.